insist on trying to solve systemic problems by reaching way, way down with a 10,000-mile screwdriver into the company formations and creating, creating policies, creating regulations that kind of restrict what commanders at the lowest level are able to do.
Mm.
So, most part, what you described is true, but there are still policies and regulations that make it harder, I guess you could just broadly
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that with the last administration actually, and we're seeing the contrast of night and day between the two presidencies, the
Mhm.
two administrations, how things are handled, the mentalities going in, the focus, the drive, the roots, the ideology is completely different from one administration to the next. Um and you probably, I can imagine, you probably have a laundry list, of things and comments about all of the things that happened during the election and moving into to the new transitions and everything of things you can analyze. There are a lot of people who are analyzing behaviors and styles and directions and everything, and you cover a little bit of that in your book. In the beginning of processes, how to compartmentalize how you actually handle things as a leader. Can you kind of start me through kind of that process of like when you started your book, how did you go about trying to explain it to people from your own words?
Well, so the book is the result of what I've observed over many, many years, and I knew, first 5 or so years as a leader, I knew watching other leaders, my leaders that outranked me or were my leaders. I knew watching them and learning from them was important. But it's hard to understand at first what to do with the information, and it's hard to discern the different types of leaders and the different aspects of each leader you want to pull and either employ yourself or to make sure that you absolutely never do that thing that your leader just did.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, and it scales all the way up to politics, is generally at our root level. And you can go through, this is in the book, evolutionary reasons for this. There's neuroscientific reasons for this,
Yeah.
and there's personality style differences for this. But just as an example, if you just take generic Biden, not what we know about Biden as a politician, but the outputs of the White House, i.e., the policies versus, and we've already got a really good look at Trump's policies because he's pushed them out so fast.
Yeah.
Um, stark night and day, stark difference. And like, just to categorize that, one is, if you go and you look at Biden, you could say, well, there's an overly empathetic side to that where we're doing these things that on paper feel like they're drawing people who are disaffected into the larger group, regardless of merit. One could make that argument. Whereas Trump is saying, if you just go on merit and don't filter people out because of immutable characteristics, then seeing things sort of balance it out. So not unempathetic,
Mm.
but focused more on skills and the personality trait might be called conscientiousness, where
Yeah.
I want the widget to work like the widget is supposed to work. In other words, so just fascinating study and very high level strategic leadership between those two camps.
Yeah. Now, did you go through any type of leadership courses? I know that, like currently, even in the corporate world now, they put you through various different types of training programs and seminars and webinars and things like this and techniques and just teaching you different skill sets. Um, did you get a lot of this within your military career? And how much of that has been applied to the book, and how much of it is your own versions of it, of adjusting it, making it better, recycling it, adding some things in, taking things out to refine it a little bit? I mean, how's that process work?
It might surprise you. In the Army, all the military, but I'm in the Army, so I'm gonna focus on the Army. In the Army, we go through schools, like formal schools that are at least 5, 6 months long, once every about 3 or 4 years. So over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, you get a lot of schools. And those schools are to prepare you for the next, series of jobs as you get promoted and,
Yep.
you take on a higher level of responsibility. Those schools teach very little about direct leadership.
Oh, really?
What they tend to focus on is, yeah, it is shocking, but it's true. Um, I could work backwards and say, yeah, in my last school, which was the Army War College, which is for colonels, they did teach quite a bit on leadership, but that was probably it was the best and most comprehensive leadership training I've had. Ironically, towards the end of my and most of the other people there, towards the end of the career, the colonel is the last rank for many people because making general is a very very slim cut. But the irony of not teaching leadership in a direct manner, especially in light of, you can imagine the number of doctrine publications that the Army has on leadership. There's tons, and we emphasize it. We talk about it all the time, but we don't teach it in schools. What is expected is you learn very very basic principles, very sort of basic concepts in schools, and I mean very very minuscule. Like for 6 months, for one of the 6 months classes for captains, for example, I think you get 2 or maybe 4 hours of leadership training
Yeah.
that whole time. That's it.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's really up to the senior commanders to mentor their junior leaders in the units, not in the schools, but in the units. The problem there is, like I talk about in my book, all leaders are different, all contexts are different. A leader on team A put the same leader on team B. It's a different. The teams are different. The leadership requirements are different.
Yeah.
So there's inconsistencies in the way we transfer leadership knowledge down into the junior ranks. Interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. Someone in the chat said, they highlighted, they said, what I don't get about the US military, how do the people within the military cope with going from one commander, like let's say Trump, or from and Biden? Like, how do he's basically asking, how do you put aside the partisan lines? I mean, how do you deal with that
Mhm.
as not only a person really in a leadership position, but in a military position?
It's honestly, it's not something we spend a lot of time thinking about. It's just,
Yeah.
our national government sets the policy and we implement the policy as directed to us.
Whether you like it or not.
So it's not something we wring our hands about or
Mhm.
worry about too much. We're
Yeah.
just we're just concerned with making sure we're implementing the policy right.
Yeah.
That might sound kind of crazy because I know for the broader population,
Yeah.
politics in the media has taken on such a prominent role that it's very natural to sort of have
Yeah.
reactions and listen to people talk about this stuff. But in the military, it's pretty straightforward, believe it
Y-
or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to have that come from you, because you can also see this in individuals that broadcast, like Dan Bongino, for example. I mean, he was,
Mhm.
he was service detail for Hillary Clinton, and he wasn't really a fan of Hillary Clinton, of how she was as a person, how she treated the staff, but he never let that get in the way of doing his duty, because his duty always
Mhm.
came first. And that's, again, comes down to that mentality, that leadership style, that just that internal moral compass, that you get from different things. And you talk a lot about that in your book, kind of just, and that's what I said at the beginning. I mean, your book really does not only give it to for people in leadership positions, but the things that you teach also translate into things you can apply to your own life. And that's why I think this was one of the best shows, of the first shows that we kick it off with, going into the new year, going into this, and these uncertain times, and people just trying to struggle and get through all of this stuff. What is one thing from your book that you can actually suggest, a method or methodology for people just wanting to apply the leadership skills and the mentality to their everyday life?
So the first thing I always tell leaders is it's critical to understand yourself because leadership is contextual, but there's three elements. There's the leader, there's the led or the followers, and there's the situation or the context. So complexity theory applies to this model. So each of those three aspects of it come with a lot of uncertainty, and the situation generally has, a pretty high amount of uncertainty. Depending on the group you're leading, lots of uncertainty. But if you understand yourself, you can reduce the uncertainty at your own personal level, which means you cannot focus on that and focus on the folks I'm leading and what is the situation telling me about how I should lead right now.
Yeah.
So in your personal life, understanding, like for me, uh, it's sort of an odd trait about myself, but I'm fairly low in conscientiousness, which means I'm more of a creative kind of guy. So if you tell me to be super organized and keep track and do checklists and follow the schedule, I'm not interested in any of that. And I know that sounds weird because I'm a colonel in the army. It's just how I am, and I've known that about myself for a long time. So when I
Yeah.
take a job, I tell my staff that exact thing. Say, look, you guys are going to have to help me over here. I'm good at strategic thinking and finding the problem that no one's looking at, and we'll get after that stuff, and that's how we kind of succeed as a unit.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff that we're going to have to collaborate on, and if you need me to do something, don't just send me an email because I'll probably ignore it.
Yeah.
You have permission to come in and stand on my desk and say, sir, we have to do this right now. But that's what I say. Understanding yourself is really important because you've got to know how to tone down certain characteristics. If you're highly neurotic, you're going to just understand that I'm going to get more emotional about changes in the environment than the average person, which means I probably need to, take a beat before I open my mouth and say something about it.
Yeah.
Just there's plenty of examples, but that's just one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very true. It's really difficult because I don't know. I don't know if it's it could be a combination of both. I don't know if it's my age. As I get older, I get less tolerant of like stupidity and just everyday life, just simple things. Like when you're going down the grocery store aisle and there's that one person that's got their whole thing parked sideways as they read the back of a jam jar,
That's
and
right. That's right.
and you come up and you know that you're in their peripheral vision and you just stand there waiting for them to capture. Whenever I was younger, this kind of thing didn't bother me. I'd like turn around and go around. I've gotten to that point now where I'm just like, no fucks given. I'm just tired of this kind of thing. And
Right.
my wife kind of laughs at me because I'm pretty reserved in these situations and everything. But then I come home and I tell her about it because everyone is tired of the incompetency that is just rife through so many things. I had a guy come this weekend. I kid you not. He was to do all my carpets. He was going to clean the whole house, the whole carpets and everything. Guy couldn't speak a lick of English and he didn't know how to operate the machine. And so it's hard to communicate with somebody when they don't know how to operate the machine. They don't speak English. And then you're talking to the owner on the phone and it's their business and they even seem incompetent. There's these people out there. Understanding how to be a good leader in a lot of ways is helping you actually handle these situations. Yes?
Absolutely. Knowing yourself. Yeah. And
Yeah.
hey, I'm with you on the carts in the grocery store. I secretly fantasize about crashing my cart into theirs every time, and my wife knows that, so she
Yeah.
knows what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, same here.
Yeah. 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 No, it's just funny. It's just funny. And it really comes down to the fact that these kind of things are going to happen. And I try to pass these on to my son as well. He goes with me. He's kind of like my wingman. We kind of, it is like a military operation. I send him off on his waypoints doing things he can gather up while I do it. We always have one location where the basket is. We don't drive the basket around. We just ferret and bring it all back in. We're out of there. We pack it up. We go. I mean, it is really, and he's really good at it. But I point these things out to him, and he's only 12, and he's got that meter, to identify these things and go on around it. But he's getting that kind of leadership training, which he doesn't get in school. They don't teach it. And like you said, I mean, even in the military, they don't really give you a whole lot of it. You don't teach in the workplace. My wife is in a high level workplace and she goes she volunteers when she sees these leadership programs coming out. She's always going to find out different strategies of it, because as a leader, you also have to deal with those same mentalities we're talking about in the grocery store as your staff. or as your employee or
Yes.
on a person on it. How do you like give me some insight on that? Where's your thinking on that one?
Great question. So, yes, you do have to do that. So the first thing I do is I explain my own personality traits, and I do that in the context of a one-on-one initial counseling. So, I have some questions, learn about their background. I'm trying to figure the person out, right? So you have to understand their personality traits. You have to understand which of their personality traits make them easy to work with and make them harder to work with. Um, and then you have to understand what makes them a better person for the team writ large, or what will trigger them to make them worse for the team.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do as a leader is I explain what I'm good at, what I'm bad at to my team, but I kind of have to get that out of them too, because you will have, for example, the trait agreeableness. What you don't want is a team full of people who are very high in agreeableness, which means they have a very hard time making a decision because they always want to do somebody else's decision. That's just those people are more comfortable doing what you want to do versus what they want to do.
Yeah, sure.
So if you have a whole planning team full of those people, you're not going to get a plan. They're just going to want to do what everybody else does, but nobody will make a decision.
Yeah.
On the same note, you don't want to have a team full of disagreeable people who don't give a shit what everybody else thinks. They want to do the thing they want to do.
Mm.
Can't have a whole team full of those people. So, as a leader, you got to be cognizant of those traits, cognizant of the things that make them fit in better, make them more productive with the team. And you have to adjust your style so that you can leverage those people to get the most out of them and make them more beneficial to the team and to the company's mission, or to the company's bottom line. And there's generally a way to do that. There's only certain personality traits that are sort of, if left unchecked, will be kind of toxic to the company. But someone who's very low in agreeableness, as an example, will have a really, especially as a leader, will have a really hard time wanting to do other people's ideas, or wanting to
Yeah.
accept other ideas or critiques of their own ideas,
Yeah.
and eventually that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But tons of the 5-factor personality model is kind of my go-to. And what I do when I talk to folks one-on-one is I use that opportunity to sort of ask questions and see if I can just get a feel for where they sit on those 5 characteristics. And then that makes you a little more able to employ your own leadership traits with that person.
Yeah. And you do that from the start, do you? You go through those five first. So you kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Um, I know that what happens though, because oh man, we've all had it, and you kind of touched on it in the beginning. When you get a particular leader that is that you're following, and you know that they're just a dumbass, like everything, like their mentality, their the way that they approach things. Because there's two types of leaders. I mean, I always said that there's people that get put in leadership positions, and they have no idea exactly how to lead, right? They just think, I'm in charge, I'm going to tell you what to do, this is the way you do it, and you're just supposed to carry it out because you're my minion. And that's the way that they approach it. And when you have someone like that, it kind of goes back to what we said about whenever you're learning in school. It's all comes down to the delivery, doesn't it? So how do you frame your mind when you're dealing with someone in a leadership position that should not be there?
That's a great lead into the phenomenons and why that happens. So this is in the new book. So there's a few things, there's a few sort of theories that apply here. So one is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who are the least experienced think they know the most about a subject. Like, it's kind of the more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know that much. So they're at the low end of the scale, completely oblivious that they don't know anything, but they think they do.
Yeah.
There's the Peter principle, where we eventually get promoted to a position of incompetence because the skill sets change. And then there's implicit leadership bias, where I have a model, because nobody teaches us exactly what good leadership looks like because it's too hard. So you have a model of what a good leader is in your head,
Yeah.
and you may have a good leader in someone else's head, but it doesn't match your model. So in your mind, that's a bad leader. So those are the three kind of explanations for that. But you know, for the dumbass leader, the first thing you need to do is figure out, what makes them a dumbass. Are they literally a low IQ dumbass? Because that's something you're not going to fix that.
Yeah.
Um, but the first thing I would say is you need to establish that dyad, that relationship between you and the leader, to understand what exactly is the incompetency here. Is it they just misunderstand their role? And I say this from a position of, if you're the subordinate and you are truly interested in making sure your team is productive, and now you have the implicit task of compensating for your leader's weaknesses, that's the approach. So you have to
Yeah.
figure out what exactly is the problem.
Yeah.
Could be personality traits, could be IQ, but you have to establish some sort of mechanism by which you can compensate for your leader's weaknesses through either yourself or through the things the team does. Present more options, or have more of a collaborative relationship with the boss. But it could be somebody's just got to sit down and say, look, the team is uncomfortable with the way you're leading.
Yeah.
Here's the reasons why. Here's what I think we can do about it. It's got to be something like that.
Yeah, you have to be the adult in the room at some point and just have honest conversations. And that's really
That's
difficult
right.
for a lot of people because people don't
It's
like
hard.
to have confrontation. They're just like, yeah, confrontation. I don't think so. I'm just gonna shut up and not say anything and just carry on.
Yep.
And in my opinion, that's always been the most damaging when people stop speaking up and talking and communicating effectively. That's when the wheels fall off. That's when it all turns to custard. So.
Mhm. Yeah, and honestly, like I said, it's kind of boils down to how bad do you want your team to succeed? Because at the end of the day, I'm fully aware that there's people who have jobs that don't care. They just want to punch in at 9 and
Yep.
punch out at 5,
9 to 4
and
and
they'll
out the
just
door.
suffer through whatever they have to suffer through. Yeah. So
Yeah,
if you want the team to succeed, then you have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very, 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 very true. Um, you know, I don't want to get into a whole lot of the political side of things, but analysis of approaches is a good way of learning, kind of, what not to do and what to do, because of course hindsight is 2020, obviously. Um, uh, when people go through and approach different subjects, for example, may it be a political one or a social one, understanding what it is you're talking about has to be paramount. But getting people to put away their biases of what they want to accept as truth and what they don't want to accept as truth has to be, um one of the hardest things to get over. How would you suggest to somebody to tackle that kind of problem if they're struggling with it?
So I think that boils down to the nature of the problem. So you have to, whatever problem you're trying to solve, to we do this in the military. We have distinct problem solving methodologies, and the goal, it doesn't always work, but the goal is to remove those personal biases, or
Mm,
even biases you're unaware of. Depending on the scope of the problem, like how complex the problem is, there's kind of very rigid sort of steps. And then there's the design methodology, which says, okay, we have to describe as much as we can about this environment just to understand what the actual problem is, because we
yeah,
don't really understand it. So the more concrete of a problem solving methodology you have, and the more you're committed to doing it correctly, the less biases you should have interjected into the problem solving. I mean, humans are humans, and some people are very committed to their biases, although
yeah,
they may be unaware of it. So at the end of the day, you may not get rid of it, but you've got to have measures to sort of, like, an analysis of the problem. You can
yeah,
see if somebody introduces their own biases into just a straight, sterile analysis of a problem set.
yeah, yeah. Um, you mentioned a moment ago about the psychology behind things. There was this article that I was reading. There was a study that was done, and the way that it was approached was to see how people handled particular situations morally within their own compass, what by if they were being watched or not. Like if they're in a group, would they choose the right decision, knowing it's the right decision, even though the group that was watching them didn't believe in that decision, right? And it's really fascinating
Mm.
because what they found is individuals with higher testosterone didn't care if the majority didn't agree with the right decision. And that was the findings of it, which opens up an enormous amount of conversations whenever it comes to assigning particular positions, or you know you know what I'm saying here. A lot of people are going to get touchy about this because
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh no, you're going to pull the sexist card, and oh you bigot." They'll call you every name in the book. But the science was
Right.
was really fascinating, that those with a higher testosterone, obviously men are going to have testosterone, some more than others,
Mhm.
they do not care if the people around them don't agree with the right thing. If the majority says, no, 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 it may be right, but we can't do it, they'll always do the right thing. Then, of course, it comes up to subjective, what's the right thing? But the study was pretty, binary of what's right and wrong, to find out how it would lie.
Mm.
So what do you think? Do you think that there is some particular positions that maybe guys can handle a little bit better than females, or females can handle? How does it? I know this is a hot one, but what do you think?
I think it's true. I think there are differences between men and women, which means men will be good at this group of activities. There'll be some overlap where men and women have equal capabilities, and women will be better at these activities. I mean, that's fairly well scientifically proven. I think that the like from a neuroscience perspective, which again is in both of my books, testosterone has a huge effect
Yeah,
on cognition, on the way you see the world,
yeah,
on your level of agreeableness. I think from an evolutionary perspective, women are more built to keep the peace within the tribe, whereas men are built to be a little more aggressive and to take risk. And of
yeah,
course, a lot of that boils down to testosterone.
yeah,
There's other stuff like there's dopamine, there's serotonin, and the way your brain is what like we don't all get equal bumps of dopamine and equal
yeah.
bumps of serotonin. I think the proliferation of anti-anxiety drugs and antidepressant drugs
Oh,
proves that, but
yeah,
but everybody's brain is different. So you may be have a little bit higher testosterone and you're more susceptible to it, and you've got this brain architecture that you feed on dopamine, so you're a very high risk taker,
yeah,
maybe to the point of getting yourself killed or other
yeah,
people killed. But yeah, that stuff is undisputable that it has massive effects on the way people see the world, their cognition, their risk taking. Undisputed.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, someone in the chat saying women, in my experience, have a higher agreeableness, which makes them better in some roles, which is true because that's why we see them kind of moving into healthcare, nursing, these kind of nurturing, maybe emotional psychology, these kind of roles. They really gravitate to it and they excel. They really excel, as where men
Yeah,
usually are like, I don't want to tell you how I feel. We bottle it up and pack it away and just carry on a lot of times.
100%
Not good.
true.
Not good to do that sometimes, obviously. But yeah. So yeah, the
Yeah, women
audience.
women definitely skew higher in trait agreeableness. I think it's a 60-40 split. So it's
Yeah.
not massive,
No.
but it's definitely there.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, when you let's take a look at life expectancy of men a little bit. Life expectancy of
Mhm.
men is a lot lower than women, and again, a lot of that goes back to we do things that you know it can get us killed. Oil wells, you're working on oil rigs. I mean, not a whole lot of women do that. Guys do it because that's for the money and they want to provide for their family. So that mentality is there as well. So yeah, agreed. Very interesting.
Yeah, you could think about it from an evolutionary perspective, right? If the men are going out and hunting, you're going to want somebody in that tribe to say, "Hey, there's a freaking mammoth over there. Maybe we should
Yeah,
try to kill that." You're going to want that risk taker, or if I'm talking 10, 20,000 years ago. If your tribe is in a conflict with another tribe, this is literally an existential threat.
Yeah.
you're going to want some psychopaths in your tribe that are willing to go out there and just, take care of that other tribe and make them no longer a threat.
Yeah.
So it's rooted in just human psychology, evolution, all the
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that television show Alone? That survival television show?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Fan of that? Yeah, me too. We're watching
Yeah.
the latest season now. And it's really fascinating to me because I really pay close attention to how each individual handles their first day on the ground, what they focus on. Some people just focus on hunting and getting food because that's their main concern. Others like, nope, got to get started on the shelter. I got to take whatever reserves that I landed with. I got to get this sorted.
Mhm.
I got to get this done. And they do men and women. And some of these women, man, they are just phenomenal in what they do, but they definitely have a different approach. And you see these women that continue on through this and are just pushing into what 30 days, 40 days, 50 days. And they're doing really good. They're hunting really well. And you look at the other guy that's doing really well, and I can't help but think. I even said to my wife last night, it would be interesting if you mix them together and let them two work together. And she's like, then it wouldn't be alone. I'm like, shut up. But the way that they each approach something it goes back to what you were just talking about.
Yeah, and I like I said, I love that show. Some of those, just to the people that do that, are tough in general. Some of those women are just a- amazingly tough. Um, the interesting thing about that show, though, is it often comes down to like starvation and sickness, but there's
Yeah.
such a psychological component to that, of because we're social creatures, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't think that it's such a big deal to not be around anybody, but it just kills these people. It just wears them out, not
Yeah.
not having anybody around them.
Yeah. They always go through that first process of like they start tackling in their minds some sort of psychological hard point of their life. They talk about their father or
Yep.
a relationship with their brother.
Yeah.
And it just
Yep.
it's like it makes you understand, obviously this is something that's been weighing on them for a long time and they've never talked about it. They've never really hashed it out in their head, and once they get out there alone, they're kind of faced with it, and there's nothing they can do. They have to face it while they're trying to survive, and once they've gotten over that point, they tap out, right? They
That's
always
right.
call and go, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I've got it out of
You
my
can
system.
tell
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
soon as as soon as they bring up that story of that trauma,
Yeah.
or start talking about their family,
Yeah.
at least half of them, once you see that, it's downhill from there.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna tap out, they're gonna go home, and a lot
Yeah.
the way that I see it is, it's like they needed to do this. I mean, when you listen
Hmm.
to them talk about it, I mean, some of it's pretty emotional, and you're just watching them kind of break down about a death or not talking to somebody, you can't help but feel for the person, and then boom, they go home, and you just go, hey, that guy needed to do what he needed to do, and then there's the other guy making a bass guitar out of a moose antler from a moose that he killed.
Yeah.
It's like, and,
Yeah.
and entertaining
Yeah.
himself and writing songs and stuff, and just seems like he's just living his best life. I mean, you have to have a
Yeah.
particular mentality, and it's really interesting when it comes to the brain, because we know that we can do things, we can rewire our brain by repetition, by mentality, by exercise, by all these different things. Do you cover that in your book of how to do that? How to push through these difficult times?
Yeah, it's actually called neuroplasticity. So, yeah, what you're exposed to in the context of your personality traits, you will constantly have these inputs, this environment, these things are happening. I do a thing to respond to it, and then you have this sort of processing of what just happened. And then you get into, that's sort of day-to-day life, and then you get into a situation like alone, where you just have these your environment is now massively out to kill you, and you've got to cope with being alone. You've got to
Yeah.
cope with all your trauma that's coming up. Your brain absolutely gets wired over things like that. And you said you've kind of changed over a few years.
Yeah.
I would just tell you that that's a true phenomenon. Your brain changes as you get older, as you're exposed to different levels of your testosterone's changing and things are happening. yeah, neuroplasticity is a thing.
Yeah.
We change.
Yeah, yeah. There was a point in time where I was working on these various projects and everything, and it would take you into nursing homes, and you meet these individuals, and you see photographs of them in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You know, they're fishing, they're motorbiking, they're doing all these things. And then you meet them when they're in like their 60s and they've got dementia, they've got, and they're just
Mhm.
gone. They're not the same person anymore. And then in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, God, please don't let that be me. Please
I know. Yeah.
don't let that be me. I mean, look at Bruce Willis, for example. I mean, Bruce Willis,
Mhm.
he's struggling with that. God bless him, but wouldn't wish it on anybody. But it's wild, and this is the things that people have to face. And right now, we have huge numbers of our society that don't even want to face reality on a regular basis. And I and there's institutions, there's schools, there's government, there's all these people reinforcing that kind of mentality, and not enough people reinforcing a leadership and reality type thing. I mean, if in a perfect world, how would you implement it? Like, where would you start in a society if you could, if you yourself was in charge of one country and said, right, this country's a mess. It's all full of woke. It's all full of all these things. These things are falling apart. These people are sick. How do we start fixing it? How would you go about doing it?
I mean, it boils down to meritocracy, hard work based on your own capabilities, get you as far as it can within certain limitations, but nothing's going to be given to you for free. Um, I'd say you just have to rewind the clock a little bit and take the aspects of America at some point. I couldn't give you a decade, but there's a decade where we kind of relied on meritocracy. People knew that if you put in the hours and you studied or you worked hard and you tried to get a promotion, that was kind of the process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think like I said, we created a overly empathetic government because that sounds good to be
Yeah.
to be empathetic and everybody gets included. Um, but you just kind of have to erase all that stuff and teach people that no, you're gonna if you don't have a skill, then you don't get hired to do that thing.
Yeah.
If you want to have a skill, there's certainly many avenues you can use to get that skill, whether it's school or on the job training or whatever. Hell, you can watch YouTube videos now.
Yeah.
Um, but but we're not giving anything away except maybe in the most extreme circumstances. I don't want to rule anything out, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, people have to know. One of my mom's big things she used to always say to me when I was having a tough time as a kid was, "Welcome to the real world."
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
so, which I hated at the time, but
Yeah.
it's absolutely the right thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I tell people that whenever I was 14, I was homeless and, living in Wisconsin of all places. Homeless in Wisconsin is not a good
Oof.
place to be, especially at 14 years old. They just go,
Mhm.
oh gosh, it blows their mind. They think of when they were 14. And to me, I'm just like, it was a thing. I did this and did it.
Mhm.
I'm kind of proud of the ingenuity that I did to kind of work my way through it. So even though it was a hard time, it was miserable. It sucked at the time. Now I can look back at it and go, well, kind of, I kind of kicked ass in it, even though it was miserable, I got
Yes,
through it,
that's right.
and I think that's where you got to approach things. Cause I mean, we're all out here eating a shit sandwich from crust to crust. I mean, we all are in our own way, in our own terms. The way that you handle it and the way you put it in your, mentally is means everything. And, you know, it's it's something that we need more of in the society, and it just seems like it's all gone away. Like everyone's erased it in movies.
Yeah,
No one's a hero anymore. Everyone's got a participation award. They've just kind of
yeah,
neutralized and dulled everyone down to where it's like, what the fuck's the point? What's the point of life anymore if it's just all neutral? You know?
right. It's like a dystopian movie where it seems like if I was going to write a book about how to ruin a country, a lot of these things are kind of exactly what I would do.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds crazy, but that these are pretty good tactics on how to do that. It's a funny if you just this is probably a trope. Everybody uses this, but if you look at the difference between me, Gen X, how we were raised, and Gen Z,
Yeah,
it's not even the same sport, man. It's just two
yeah,
different things.
yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about, whenever I was a kid, I mean, even at the age of like 7 or 8, we would just jump on our bikes and just disappear
Yeah,
into the
absolutely.
wilderness for hours. Me and my friends, when we were like 12, 13, we'd get on our horses and we would go out, and because I lived in New Mexico at the particular time, we'd just go out and go hunting. We go coyote hunting because they offered
Mhm.
$50 a pelt at the U-Haul station for coyotes because it helped the
Nice.
ranchers. Yeah, I know, right? And if you brought in crayfish out of the ditches for the bait things, those were like 3 cents a piece, and you could get like bags of them. So all you got to do is get in there and get pinched a few times, and that's what we did
Mhm.
as kids, as teenagers. But yeah, I can't even imagine my son walking to the local corner gas station for a candy bar because he's going to pass these homes that have these unsavories out there that are doing illegal things that the police just don't seem to care
Yeah.
about. You just don't want it. And then you hear about these things going on in the UK where a 12-year-old boy has just got stabbed in the neck just walking home from school. I can't imagine. I can't
Yeah.
imagine anymore what it's like.
Yeah. Some of this stuff is nuts. And, I was the same way. I was on bicycles and you just were gone all day. And if you got hurt or you ran into a problem or whatever, you just had to figure it out because no one's coming. You didn't have a cell phone. So, that is your problem to solve.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but
Absolutely.
it honestly, by the time you're, in your 20s, then, you're used to solving problems on your own. So I
Yeah.
think that although maybe just a marginally more dangerous in this environment, still builds the characteristics that are required of a grown person.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think of the way sports are going right now? I mean, we've got some pretty decent leaders in the NFL. I mean, I don't know. Are you a sports fan? Are you an NFL fan at all?
Nope, I'm going to be quite dull on this one. I don't really watch sports. I'm a power lifter, or I was. I'm old and broken and falling apart now. I can watch something as boring as powerlifting, but I don't watch any other sports, man.
Yeah, yeah. I used to watch NFL all the time. But I also lived in Wisconsin at the time, so of course the Green Bay Packers, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
watching Brett Favre, I had 50-yard line, season tickets, Lambeau Field, freezing your ass off, but watching Favre play. I mean, it was Brett Favre. Come on, fucking hell, right? But the way that he led his team in these games, you don't quite see that kind of thing anymore. I mean, they mimic a lot of the things and they say the right words, but I mean, the guy threw he played an entire season with a damaged rotator cuff and didn't say
mhm,
anything, and it was still
that's right.
his interceptions were still low at that particular time. It wasn't until they fixed his shoulder where he started throwing interceptions, right? But he was a complete leader across the board, and a lot of the guys that worked under him. I mean, even legendary Reggie White. He was the linebacker for him, the defense linebacker. He said that he was one of the best leaders he had ever had in the NFL because he approached it of understanding what everyone's skill set was, what they were best at, and how to put together plays to execute them every single time. Coaches will, and the coach, oh, this is embarrassing. I can't remember his name now. He pretty much would let Favre call those plays like on the field. I mean, if it didn't go well, it was their ass to burn, obviously, because whenever you're making decisions like that, your ass is in the hot seat. So you got to take the good with the bad. But he
Yeah,
let him do this, and it was a successful approach. Yeah.
yeah, and what a you could consider the normal leadership environment or the corporate. Now look at literally the top players in the world who have been the top players in their game their whole lives, basically trying to lead that group of people. And of course, they all want to win. But I can just imagine the strong personalities, the leadership approach to get that group of people to do to orchestrate what they have to do together. It takes a special kind of leader. It's not just any old leader is going to be able to do that, because you have to have the skills to understand what's going on in the field, what this guy needs to do, what that guy needs to do, how it can be integrated, how it can be improved.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's pretty amazing that those guys can do that at that high of a level.
Yeah. I got an email here asking if you're struggling with drug and alcohol addictions, what kind of leadership techniques could be utilized to overcome that?
That's a tough one, but I would say
Yeah, it is a tough one.
um,
I
it
summarized
still
it too. So.
applies. Okay. But I mean, it always boils down to know yourself. Like, why exactly do you think this problem exists? Drugs or alcohol? So there might be some psychological underpinnings for that. There may be some neuroscientific reasons for that, whether it's, you've got some screwed neurotransmitters, or skewed, not screwed, something going on in your brain that does that. Highly addictive personalities. So I would say understand yourself, try to understand the roots of this. But first is you've got to understand that that the treatment available is probably going to involve not just you doing something, but bringing someone with the leadership expertise to help you out into the picture, and then making sure that that person's got the right approach that merges with your own characteristics, because there are therapists and all that who you won't quite mesh with. So you've got to find the right person that applies the right techniques to you. And this is kind of a leadership problem, because that those same characteristics or same requirements apply to leadership.
Yeah.
But you've got to reach out and find the person that can help lead you through this thing, because it's obviously a big deal. It's obviously very hard to overcome, and it's not something that's just going to happen magically by changing the way you see the world.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some person once told me that a lot of these things are a bit of a crutch. And you kind of lean on these things, and we do that with normal medications and things like that. It's whenever it starts guiding your life or being the rudder of your life, you have to kind of step back and decide, how much of that rudder is it gonna be for you, because it's gonna lead you down a bad path. We are at the top of the hour, so we're gonna take a quick.
Well, how much is it actually helping?
Yeah, exactly. How much is it helping? How far? And that's a weird thing, and that's something we can talk about when we come back, because your brain plays tricks on you. It makes you think, oh no, this is good. My body feels good. Does. I'm down here. I'm in this particular mindset and position. I'm not exactly doing anything good for my life, but it feels good. So I'm just going to continue on. Yeah. We'll talk about it when we come back. This is the Underground Daily. We'll be back in just a moment. We've got another hour to go. So if you want to get your comments or questions or anything in, you can do so. We have the live feed up and going. You can find us on YouTube as well. Oh, well, take that back. YouTube is funky because they don't like us playing music that they give us. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either. So they'll stop our broadcast. So we stop broadcast on YouTube. Of course, we're fine on X and Rumble and all the other ones that we're broadcasting on Twitch and so on and so forth. So there you're fine. If you're on YouTube and watch us on YouTube, we're going to have a slight pause. You're not going to hear anything. We'll be back. Stick around. This is the Underground Daily. Send me email, jack@theundergrounddaily.com, and we'll be back right after this.
Crawl choose yesterday. You can care all you want. Everybody does, yeah, that's okay. So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You're one of my kind. I need you tonight, 'cause I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, girl, that makes me sweat. I'm lonely. What do you think? Can't think at all. What you gonna do? Gonna live my life. So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You are my kind. Oh. I need you tonight, 'cause I'm not sleeping. There's something about you, girl, that makes me sweat. So how do you feel? I'm lonely. What do you think? Can't think at all. What you gonna do? Gonna live my life. How do you feel? I'm lonely. What do you think? Can't think at all. What you gonna do? Gonna live my life. So slide over here and give me a moment. Your moves are so raw. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. So slide over here and give me a moment. I've got to let you know. I've got to let you know. You're one of my kind.
I wanna give it all to you. In the darkness, there's so much I wanna do. And tonight, I wanna lay it at your feet. 'Cause girl, I was made for you. And girl, you were made for me. I was made for loving you, baby. You were made for loving me. And I can't get enough of you, baby. Can you get enough of me? Tonight, I wanna see it in your eyes.
And here we go. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Underground Daily. We're here on a Saturday night. It is approximately 10:15 p.m., and we have a fantastic show. The first show of 2025. So if you're just joining us, let me bring in our guest and introduce you because he is fantastic. His name is Damon Wills, Colonel Damon Wills, and he is talking about, and he's talking about how to be an effective leader. And so far, I'm telling you what, we've definitely got the leaders out there in various different positions. Their ears are perked because they are sending me questions left and right. So here we go. Welcome back, Damon. First of all, let's get you back in here. Is it going to let you back in? Slowly but surely. Oh, okay. New system's running slow. Well, that's our first hiccup of 2025. It happens all the time. Library. Okay. There we go. Hang tight, everybody. System decided to do a reset. Don't worry. That's interesting. Never had that happen before. Well, I guess if it's going to happen anytime, it should happen live. Okay, we're back there. We've got Damon Wills is back, I think. And we've lost 2 monitor systems. Are we back? Yes? No? I don't know. All right. Well, I'm just going to wait for our systems to fix itself, if it will at all. Are we back? It kind of looks like we are, but I can't tell. It looks like we might have to take a slight extra break. We'll be back in a moment, I think.